Welcome to an extraordinary journey into one of America's most classified and controversial programs. I'm your host, Oz Dalton, and today we're diving deep into American Scandal Report by Skoob to explore Project Stargate, a 23-year odyssey that challenged everything we thought we knew about the human mind, intelligence gathering, and the very nature of reality itself. Picture this. It's the height of the Cold War. The CIA discovers that the Soviet Union might be training psychic spies. The response? America launches its own clandestine program, spending $20 million over 2 decades to develop what sounds like pure science fiction. Soldiers who could see through walls, locate enemy submarines with their minds, and gather intelligence from thousands of miles away using nothing but mental focus. This isn't Hollywood fantasy, this is documented history. And today we're uncovering the truth behind America's most mysterious intelligence program. Let's begin our story in the early 1970s at the Stanford Research Institute, where two laser physicists named Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ were about to change everything. These weren't mystical gurus or New Age enthusiasts. They were serious scientists working on a government-supported research initiative that would birth something called remote viewing. Now, what exactly is remote viewing? Think of it as clairvoyance stripped of its mystical baggage and subjected to rigorous scientific protocol. It's the ability to obtain detailed information about specific targets, objects, people, locations, or events, despite being separated by vast distances, time periods, or physical barriers. But here's the crucial part that separates legitimate remote viewing from parlor tricks: the double-blind condition. Neither the remote viewer nor anyone present with them can have prior knowledge of the target. Any violation of this protocol disqualifies the exercise from being considered true remote viewing. This isn't negotiable, it's the bedrock that separates science from speculation. The early experiments were nothing short of remarkable. In one pivotal test, a psychic named Pat Price accurately and intricately described the Redwood City Marina before the experimenters, including Puthoff himself, even arrived there. Imagine that for a moment, describing in detail a location you've never seen, while the researchers are still driving to verify your vision. But Price wasn't alone. Another remote viewer, Hella Hamid, produced 4 transcribed descriptions of randomly selected targets before experimenters visited the sites. 3 independent, unbiased judges correctly matched all 4 descriptions with their corresponding targets. The odds of this happening by chance? Astronomical. By the mid-1970s, this technique had evolved beyond academic curiosity. The CIA and later the Defense Department's Stargate program began adapting remote viewing using geographical coordinates to gather actual intelligence. We're talking about finding missing aircraft, providing information on Soviet weapon developments, and achievements that would later be chronicled in detailed histories and memoirs. But perhaps the most mind-bending aspect was what happened next. Remote viewers began describing events before they occurred, suggesting that this phenomenon might transcend not just space, but time itself. May 1987, Fort Meade, Maryland. A Stargate remote viewer named Paul Smith sits in a sterile room, his mind reaching across dimensions of space and time. What he sees and describes seems impossible. A deliberately staged missile strike on a warship near a desert nation. The description appears to be pure fantasy, contradicting all available geopolitical intelligence. The report is filed away, seemingly another failed attempt. Then Monday's newspapers hit the stands. An unexpected Iraqi missile strike on the USS Stark in the Persian Gulf, matching Smith's predictions with chilling accuracy. What Smith had witnessed wasn't imagination, it was precognition. This incident perfectly illustrates the temporal fluidity that researchers began observing in remote viewing. The phenomenon wasn't just about seeing across distance, it was about seeing across time itself, challenging our fundamental understanding of cause and effect, past and future. The scientific community took notice. From 1976 to 1999, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory conducted one of the most comprehensive studies of what they called precognitive remote perception. Led by Brenda Dunn and peer director Robert Jahn, they conducted 653 trials involving 72 different participants. The results were staggering. More than 1/3 of these trials were recognized as successful hits by independent judges. The likelihood of this success being due to mere chance? 33 million to 1. Even more remarkably, participants' success rates remained consistent regardless of whether they were viewing targets minutes, hours, or weeks in the future or past. Jessica Utz, a statistician from UC Davis, examined the findings in a report commissioned by Congress. Her conclusion was unequivocal. The results were well beyond what could be anticipated by random chance and weren't attributable to methodological errors or fraud. In her 2016 address to the American Statistical Association, Utz stated that if these findings pertained to less extraordinary topics, they would gain widespread acceptance in the scientific community. Yet here's the tragic irony. Despite robust statistical evidence, many scientists dismiss these abilities without even examining the empirical data. The implications are too extraordinary, too threatening to our conventional worldview. Let me take you inside the program itself through the eyes of someone who lived it. In 1978, a covert project initially titled Grill Flame commenced, evolving from the experimental groundwork laid at SRI International between 1972 and 1974-1975. The CIA and other agencies had seen enough to convince certain factions within the United States Army Intelligence and Security Command to recruit and train psychics for actual intelligence gathering operations. Remote Viewer 001, that's how one of the original team members was designated. Picture being part of an initial team of 6 recruited viewers embarking on what would become a 17-year journey through the looking glass of human consciousness. Over nearly 2 decades, the project underwent multiple transformations, changing names from Grill Flame to Center Lane, then to Sunstreak when it transferred to the Defense Intelligence Agency in the late 1980s, and finally to Stargate. But here's what the conspiracy theorists get wrong. This wasn't some rogue operation running wild without oversight. Stargate was consistently monitored by multiple oversight committees with both scientific and governmental ties. Every year, its continuation depended on evaluations from these oversight entities, who assessed the program not just on tactical successes, but on adherence to established scientific and procedural guidelines. The program supported virtually all US intelligence agencies during its operational peak. And here's a crucial point that often gets lost in sensationalized accounts. By the time a mission was assigned to the remote viewing team, conventional intelligence gathering methods had already been exhausted. These psychic spies weren't the first resort. They were the last hope when all else had failed. The management challenge was unique. As one government insider candidly revealed, nobody has the guts to admit they fear it. The program was essentially a political, social, and managerial hot potato. Many in leadership positions preferred shifting responsibility to others, avoiding association with something that challenged the very foundations of how we understand reality. As the fascination with New Age beliefs began to wane in 1995, a bombshell revelation emerged that the CIA and US Army had spent 25 years and $20 million on a clandestine program that seemed ripped from the pages of science fiction. The Cold War had sparked fears of a peace-eye gap. Intelligence suggested the Soviets were training their own psychic operatives, prompting America to respond in kind. What followed reads like a fever dream of military imagination. Picture researchers investigating invisibility, levitation, telekinesis, and even the potential to harm or kill living beings solely by staring at them. The ultimate objective, dispatching enemy combatants telepathically. If it sounds absurd, remember that nuclear weapons once sounded impossible too. The cast of characters was as colourful as it was unlikely. Major General Albert Stubblebine III, who spearheaded psychic operations from Arlington, Virginia, believed with absolute conviction that walking through walls was achievable with enough focus. Lieutenant Colonel Jim Channon, a Vietnam veteran influenced by the counterculture movement, envisioned an army of warrior monks and Jedi Knights who would transform warfare through energy channeling hugs and peaceful intentions. From their unimpressive building in Maryland, psychic spies attempted to locate missile sites, submarines, and American POWs and MIAs using only the power of their minds. The hope was that these abilities could be perfected to preemptively destroy enemy missiles in their silos through pure mental focus. But the program's influence extended far beyond remote viewing. Psychological operations developed during this era found their way into modern warfare. The coercive techniques used on detainees at Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib showed eerie parallels to tactics employed during the FBI siege at Waco, Texas, where Branch Davidians were subjected to continuous audio assault with screaming animals, dentist drills, and Nancy Sinatra's "These Boots Are Made for Walking." In Iraq, similar psychological operations blared the repetitive Barney theme song at prisoners, driving them to the edge of madness. Now, here's where we must separate the extraordinary claims from extraordinary evidence. Despite decades of research and millions in funding, concrete proof of dramatic psychic powers has remained elusive. Efforts like levitation, invisibility, and wall crossing remain firmly in the realm of fiction. Even remote viewing, when subjected to properly controlled scientific tests, where both participants and evaluators are truly blind to target information, shows dramatically reduced effectiveness. Consider the case of Guy Savelli, a martial arts instructor who claimed involvement in experiments where soldiers caused goats' deaths through staring. His account described an experiment with a herd of goats, but when pressed for scientific evidence, autopsy reports, controlled conditions, documented timelines, the proof evaporated. A videotape he presented showed only a minor dip in a goat's heart rate, from 65 to 55 beats per minute, hardly the stuff of psychic legend. This reveals a critical lesson from paranormal investigations. There's often a significant chasm between people's memories of supposed supernatural occurrences and the objective reality of what actually transpired. Human memory is notoriously unreliable, especially when dealing with extraordinary claims that we want to believe. Yet we can't dismiss everything. The statistical evidence compiled by researchers like Jessica Utz suggests that something genuine was occurring, even if it wasn't as dramatic as Hollywood portrayals suggest. Here's where the story becomes truly complex. The Grill Flame/Stargate project grappled with a fundamental challenge in intelligence work: the difference between data quality and intelligence value. These two concepts, often confused by the public, can be dramatically different. Imagine a spy satellite capturing a crystal clear, high-resolution image of a new Soviet tank, revealing every rivet and detail. Undeniably high-quality data. But unknown to the satellite team, a US Special Operations Unit has already obtained one of these tanks. Suddenly, that perfect photograph becomes intelligence worthless, despite its technical quality. Conversely, consider a poor-quality satellite photograph taken during a dust storm, showing only vague outlines. Yet this blurry image might inspire an analyst to revisit other data, ultimately solving a long-standing intelligence puzzle. Low-quality data, immense intelligence value. This paradigm applied directly to Stargate operations. In 1995, the CIA's comprehensive review of the program analyzed 40 distinct ESP operations, conducted from 1986 through early 1995. The Department of Defense's paranormal psychology program had received over 200 task requests from operational military units seeking information unavailable through conventional means. The results? Roughly 70% of the estimates were evaluated as possibly or more likely true. However, only half of these were deemed to hold any intelligence value, and that value was often minimal. This presents a fascinating paradox. The remote viewers were hitting targets at rates far exceeding chance, but translating those hits into actionable intelligence proved challenging. A critical limitation emerged. These evaluations were compiled after the fact, once ground truth was established. Throughout Stargate's years of operation, no consistent indicator could reliably predict, in advance, which remote viewing sessions would produce valuable intelligence. This uncertainty highlighted the risk of allocating scarce resources, based solely on ESP, derived intelligence, without independent corroboration. By 1995, the writing was on the wall, though not for the reasons most people assume. The CIA had reached a decision to terminate the program, but the timeline reveals something intriguing about their motivations. The agreement between the CIA and the American Institutes for Research for a final program review was signed in June 1995. The review began in July and concluded in September, with the final report released on September 29th. But here's the smoking gun. 3 months before this report was even published, on June 30th, 1995, before the AIR review had even commenced, the CIA issued a directive to cease Stargate operations. The project was officially shut down and remaining staff reassigned. The decision to kill the program was made independent of the review's findings. Some conspiracy theorists suggest that Stargate was sacrificed to divert attention from a more secretive remote viewing program hidden deep within CIA operations. but the evidence points to a different kind of conspiracy, one designed to dismantle rather than preserve psychic intelligence gathering. The program's champions, figures like Senator John Glenn, Defense Secretary William Cohen, intelligence officers Jack Verona and Claiborne Pell, Congressman Charlie Rose, either retired or were marginalized. Their opponents gained control, and this time there was no governmental resurrection after 23 years of operation. Even if someone with influence wanted to restart a government-backed remote viewing program after 1995, the infrastructure was gone. During the Clinton presidency, intelligence programs faced funding cuts as a Republican-led Congress rationalized spending after the Cold War's end. Despite being relatively inexpensive by government standards, programs like Stargate fell below the threshold for financial backing. Today, while the war on terror has revealed larger intelligence budgets, the institutional knowledge and infrastructure that supported remote viewing has largely vanished. Only 4 former Stargate staff members remain in government roles, many approaching retirement. Starting anew would mean building from scratch, a daunting prospect for any government initiative. As we near the end of our journey through the Stargate mysteries, we must confront an uncomfortable truth about the current state of remote viewing. A troubling trend has emerged with individuals falsely claiming association with the Stargate program, some with minimal actual involvement, now asserting they possess abilities that surpass human potential. These self-proclaimed experts, driven by egotism and financial motivation, have created a dualistic view of remote viewing. On one side, we have the beneficial aspects, insights into human potential, our interconnectedness with the environment, and possibilities for understanding time's intricate web linking past, present, and future. On the other side, we find numerous diversions and manipulations that exploit public fascination with the extraordinary. Many promote seemingly miraculous solutions or products without basis in reality, undermining the genuine scientific work that was conducted. These unethical practices detract from understanding remote viewing's real potential and its profound implications for comprehending the untapped capabilities of the human mind. The original Stargate program, whatever its limitations, operated under scientific protocols and government oversight. It sought to understand human consciousness within a framework of rigorous methodology. The current commercialization and sensationalization of remote viewing represents a betrayal of that scientific approach. True remote viewing, as developed at Stanford Research Institute and refined over decades, requires strict adherence to double-blind protocols. Without these safeguards, we're not dealing with remote viewing at all, but with something far less reliable and far more susceptible to self-deception and fraud. So where does this leave us? After 23 years of government research, millions of dollars in funding, and thousands of remote viewing sessions, what have we actually learned about the boundaries of human consciousness? The statistical evidence suggests that something genuine was occurring, results far exceeding what chance would predict, documented by credible researchers, and analyzed by respected statisticians. Yet the practical applications remained frustratingly inconsistent. Remote viewers could describe targets with uncanny accuracy in some sessions while failing completely in others, with no reliable way to predict which sessions would succeed. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect remains the temporal component, the apparent ability to perceive events before they occur. Paul Smith's vision of the USS Stark attack, the Princeton Laboratory's precognitive experiments, and numerous other documented cases suggest that consciousness might operate outside our conventional understanding of time and space. But we must also acknowledge the failures. Despite decades of research, no remote viewer ever demonstrated the ability to walk through walls, become invisible, or kill with a stare. The more extraordinary claims remain unsupported by credible evidence, reminding us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. The program's greatest success might not have been in proving psychic abilities, but in pushing the boundaries of scientific inquiry into consciousness itself. Stargate researchers developed methodologies for studying subjective experiences objectively, creating protocols that future consciousness researchers continue to refine. As we close the file on Project Stargate, we keep more questions than answers, and maybe that's the point. The program tested the limits of consciousness and asked whether mind can reach across space and time. Believer or skeptic, the story teaches us about rigorous inquiry, cautious curiosity, and why extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. Remote viewers served their country in one of intelligence history's oddest chapters. Their experiences deserve a clear, careful telling, no sensationalism, no dismissal. Want the declassified sessions, transcripts, and the details that never made headlines? There's more beneath the surface. Download the Skoob app now to get access to the full story and exclusive bonus material.